Bitcoiners, I hope you love your life today. I do. I'm loving my life. Things are going great. Who could complain on a day like today, right? Who could complain? Every day walking with Christ says, good morning, Bitcoin maxis. God bless you all. Malay, 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 Malay. We're going to be talking about Malay, of course. Quentin, good morning. Hope you're doing great, my man. Joseph, liberty for the win. God bless all the people of Argentina, for sure. Malay wins, and my plantar fasciitis is clearing up. Gonna be a great week. I didn't know you had some plantar fasciitis. T-Dog Yo-Yo. Diet has a lot to do with it. I used to struggle with plantar fasciitis. And the other thing I'll give you a tip on, T-Dog Yo-Yo, knees over toes, it's called. So just look up knees over toes. There's a guy whose Twitter handle is actually called knees over toes on Twitter. Check him out. And the exercise is the Asian poop squat. You know, the toilets, when there's no toilet bowl and you got to poop on the ground, you know, the move of like squatting. It's one of the things that helps get rid of it. You don't actually need the toilet, though. You can just do the squatting, right? So you don't have to change your toilet around. You're okay. All right. So there you go, T-Dog Yo-Yo. Happy to give advice because I struggled with that for years, but diet really had a lot to do with it in the end, believe it or not. Good morning, Breakup Set. Good morning, Ben. Hope you're doing great. Thomas, Javier Millet wins 56-44 in an absolute landslide victory. That's what we like. We like the landslides. Vivek 56, Vivek, we got to get it right. We're going to talk about the pronunciation today. Good morning, Christine. Hope you're doing great. Robert, good morning. Great way to wake up. Wasn't it fun? Good morning, Hodlty. Good morning. Bitcoiners are indeed winning. Pleb City plebs. We love it. That pizza looks pretty terrible. Let's go. I should be asleep by now. We're going to be talking pizza. That's for sure. Veterans Cannabis. Good morning, Sunshine Breakup Breakfast Crew. What's up, Bitcoiners? P-Man. What's up, Bud? Hope you're doing great. Congratulations to Argentina and their new libertarian president today. There you go. It's a great day, Joe. It is. B for victory. Good morning. Bon matin, Bitcoiners. Bitcoin Graffiti says the fake MSM news are. I obviously have a special Moscow time in honor of Millet. Bitcoin Graffiti, good contraindicator for sure. Did Millet really? He really did win, Robert. It's amazing. Yeah, he actually did it. The low carb, yeah, I did exactly. Yeah. Low carb diet has a lot to do with it, Jack. I'm not sure it's the only answer, but it. I'm the veteran out of out of Cannabis Group. Yeah, it's. Look, I did it. I tried everything. I went away. I thought in my case it was like winter weather, sitting down and like not really exercising too much in the winter. So I even tried that before I just accepted the facts. So diet helped me. I haven't had it in years, and I used to struggle. I used to be one of those joggers, people jogging all the time. So stupid. What was I thinking? At least I didn't get up early to jog, right? At least I wasn't a sunrise jogger. But if I was a sunrise jogger, I would have enjoyed a lot of sunrises. And I saw the sunrise this morning. Perfect. No troubles. And Bitcoin's running. So let's have a coffee and talk about all the other stuff that happened in the world. But first, as you know, we like to take a tour through the fake news before we talk about other news. So the New York Times states the following: the startling evidence of learning loss is in. That's all the COVID stuff, right? So I guess they're admitting now that if you close the schools, kids don't learn. Maybe. Although I would disagree with it. So there you go. Daily Mail, we have the following: world's top climate scientists told to cover up the fact that the Earth's temperature hasn't risen for the last 15 years. What? Normal. Leaked United Nations report reveals the world's temperature hasn't risen for the last 15 years. Politicians have raised concerns about the final draft, fears that the findings will encourage deniers of man-made climate change. This one's good. This is the Associated Press, right? Why Americans feel gloomy about the economy despite falling inflation and low unemployment. What's the matter with you idiots? Come on, cheer up. It's fine. This one's good, right? And as you know, we are very LGBTQ plus positive here, right? But I'm surprised about this headline, right? El Salvador, right, had the Miss Universe pageant, and it went bankrupt the same week, which is also funny. So they held the bankrupt Miss Universe competition in El Salvador, and headline, all right? I'm just going to say the headline as it is. Biological women wins 2023 Miss Universe pageant. There you go. So now we get to our Millet headlines. All right. So there's a whole bunch that are really good. All right. Here's The Guardian. Bad and dangerous. Argentina's Trump on track to become president. All right. This is from The Guardian. Argentina presidential election. Far-right libertarian Javier Milei wins after rival concedes. Victory for TV celebrity turned politician catapults South America's second largest economy into an unpredictable future. New York Times. Argentina elects Javier Milei in victory for far right. Argentina's next president is a libertarian economist whose brash style and embrace of conspiracy theories has parallels with Donald J. Trump. They have to put the J in there because we're not sure which Donald it is, apparently, right? Donald Trump it is. It's the Donald J. Trump, guys. All right, Washington Post. So these are our favorite ones, right? New York Times and Washington Post. They're always the best. You can always guarantee they're going to be the best Moscow time possible, right? No one can actually compete with them in Moscow time fully. So here's the Washington Post. Democracy dies in darkness, Washington Post. Argentina set for sharp right turn as Trump-like radical wins presidency. Do I have any more? No, I don't have any more, unfortunately. I thought I had more. So indeed, Javier Milei has won the Argentinian presidency. Now we said potentially that the election was going to be scammed and stolen, right? So we said that. We said he had to win by a certain amount for the scamming and the stealing to not work. Looks like it happened. Now, I'm really glad it happened, right? But we got to acknowledge we made a prediction that they would scam it, right? Now, I didn't say it was 100% certainty they were going to scam it. I said as long as he wins by enough, the scam won't make a difference, and we'll get the result we got, which it looks like is what happened. Right now, was there a risk of it getting scammed? I don't know. I'm just reading what I see in America and Canada, right? So. If they didn't do it there, the whole primary looked a little suspicious, right? This guy came out of nowhere. The guy who came in first in the primary in the first election, the guy who lost this one, Milei came second a month ago or whatever. So, it looked like the guy who came out of nowhere, who was the economy minister, the one who failed them, right? So it looked like it was setting up for a scam, but it didn't. Now, it's not that simple though, right? It's not that simple. So, Mike Benz, who, we love Mike Benz, right? We are always listening to Mike Benz. I'd say, today's theme is the architecture of deceit, right? This is something that Scott Adams said the other day to describe the fake news industrial complex and the information laundering complex and the military industrial complex, and all of that together creates the architecture of deceit, right? So the architecture of deceit, and you should view it that way. You should see it as like a building with support mechanisms, and if you move one piece, it can fall, right? It is an intricate machine that requires engineering and support and things you don't see in order for the whole thing to stay up, right? So it's a marvel of engineering in a sense, right? It's been here for 80 years, it looks like, and this power actually extends, this architecture of deceit has extended for a long time towards election manipulation in foreign countries, right? So whenever anyone said about Russia collusion influencing our elections, everybody who knows what's going on in the world said, well, America's been influencing elections around the world for a long time, right? And so Mike Benz's whole sort of worldview is that this power was first exercised by the Eisenhower-Nixon White House, but quickly went out of control, right? And so the power to influence elections and the power that ended up growing beyond the power of the presidency can be actually understood in its proportion and its scale by just looking at what happened in the 50s with Guatemala and all these different countries, right, that we've heard about many times, United Fruit Company, the beginning of the cutouts that were there to launder information and launder money and do whatever else was needed in order for this architecture of deceit to continue to perpetuate forward. So when we look at what happened in 1963 with Kennedy, it's the first instance of seeing that this architecture of deceit had grown to the point where presidents could be dismissed. So it looks like that's what happened. So when Milei was elected, Benz did about a 20-minute video yesterday saying at the start, just straight up like this, right? Admitting at the start of his video, I did not follow this election and I don't know what's going on. But he showed his process. He showed his work. So I'll share what his work was with you, right? So the first piece of his work, which was amazing, right? Really clever. I'd never even seen this before. So he just is sort of riffing through it, sharing his screen and also speaking at the same time. It's about a 20-minute video. You can watch it. It's not like, it's not him explaining stuff the whole time. It's literally just him showing his process and going through the work of reading headlines, Googling stuff, seeing what comes up. But his first test is this, right? He puts in threat to democracy. So if you see the fake news writing threat to democracy, that's information laundering. That's a sign. Remember when the 51 known liars discussed Hunter Biden's laptop and they call it the earmarks of Russian influence? Well, the earmarks of, you can't even really necessarily call it American, right? The earmarks of this type of influence, the architecture of deceit influence, can be seen in that threat to democracy attachment, right? That is one of the persuasion terms that are used to set people up into understanding that democracy is threatened. Therefore, I must help it survive by ignoring the Constitution, calling someone a name, believing I'm on the good side of history, and all these other things that are done in order to influence and help sustain this architecture of deceit. So he goes through his work, right? He does this thing where he puts in Javier Milei, threat to democracy. And what does he find, right? So I'll tell you what he finds. Of course, he finds the AP, right? Argentine presidential candidate goes up with a threat to democracy, right? So that's in there. Another one here, WLRN, not sure who that is, but probably part of the Reuters distribution network or the Associated Press distribution network. Argentina's threat to democracy feels like a preview for America. So that was one the other day. Washington Post has an article, but it's written by an opinion person, he points out, right? But he does say the more serious threat to democracy. And this is where Ben starts saying, wait a minute, we got to ask a few questions here, right? He's not saying Milei is trouble, right? But he's saying you got to ask a few questions. He says, in this Washington Post opinion piece, we see it's someone saying that the actual threat to democracy is Milei's supporters. To Ben's, that was a red flag, not a major red flag, but understand this, that if the option is to deceive, right? If the option is to deceive, you have to have Milei backstab his supporters. And that's how you do it, right? If you perceive this populist threat, you can put someone in to basically stunt the potential of this thing. So he's not going ahead and saying this is happening, but he says this opinion piece, which puts the threat to democracy on the heads of Milei's supporters, is a sign that sketchiness is around. However, he has noticed that there's the other, folks have called Milei himself a threat to democracy. So he's not going that far. He's just showing you what strains are out there. Financial Times comes straight out and says he's a threat to democracy, so that pushes Benz more over. But here's what Benz did notice, and what is interesting, and what will allow all of us Bitcoiners to understand better what's going on in Argentina going forward. And we should have an indication very quickly exactly what Milei is all about. So here's the thing. When Milei came in second in the first round, this is what Benz has noticed, and it's covered by lots of people, Associated Press and others. He noticed that when Milei came in second in the first tour, he started holding meetings with the IMF. So in the last month, he's met several times with the IMF, according to Benz, or at least one time. Associated Press picked it up. Argentina's anti-establishment candidate Milei engages IMF in economic talks after shock primary win. He did not win the primary. Al Jazeera writes, Argentina's populist candidate Javier Milei holds economic talks with IMF. Reuters also, Argentina's Milei pitched dollarization models in IMF meeting sources. So him going out and doing all this stuff, it doesn't mean anything bad, right? I'm absolutely not trying to tell you that I have a special insight into Javier Milei. I don't have anything besides enthusiasm for him. I love his style, love what he says, right? I'm going to grow my sideburns out now. The sideburns are, by the way, if you didn't know this, they're deliberate, right? They're a throwback to the way classical liberals styled themselves in South America 100 years ago. So it's very deliberate, right? My wife has even told me that I can do my hair like Milei, so maybe I'll start adopting Milei's personal style. It might come in fashion, who knows? So all of that about Milei is, here's just some of the endearing things he said that you gotta love him for, right? So if printing money would end poverty, printing diplomas would end stupidity. So good. So good. Yeah. So the hair is Tur de Meester brings it up. He says Javier Milei's famous sideburns are likely a conscious nudge to Argentine General Jose de San Martin, celebrated in Latin America as a liberator who played an important role in gaining independence from the Spanish Empire. So that's what some people say, right? Tur mentions here that he went to the original La BitConf, which I have spoken at years ago. And it was in 2013. Amazing, huh? And that's where he first so apparently Tur says, I first learned about Bitcoin in Argentina and attended Buenos Aires' first Bitcoin meetup, a barbecue with 5 people. It's incredible to think that 11 years later, a pro-Bitcoin candidate is on everyone's tongues. And I still believe Bitcoin will mark the end of monetary apartheid. So here's how we know we'll be able to check immediately what Milei's up to. And it's actually Bitcoin. Again, amazingly, Bitcoin will give us the test we need to understand who Milei really is, right? So the reason I say that is because Milei has already been able to articulate what bimetallism really is. Now, not a lot of people know what bimetallism is. We're going to start talking about it a lot more here because we got to get armed as far as Bitcoiners to explain what bimetallism is, because it looks like we're going through a stage of bimetallism. So bimetallism is the economic condition previous to the gold standard. When it was the gold standard, when you hear that gold redemption was paused in the 1930s and that the gold standard was actually ended in America in 1971. That's all true, right? But the precursor to the gold standard wasn't, more gold or a different gold or anything like that. What was going on in America with the Spanish silver dollar and gold deposits was bimetallism. It was silver for consumer transactions and gold for big transactions, right? So when he has been asked to explain this, he's been able to do that. So this is an exact quote from him explaining what he wants to do with the dollar in Argentina. He says, silver for small transactions and gold for the bigger ones, right? Talking all about legal tender and how the taxation piece was a huge part of this and making private money illegal by this legal tender declaration was a major scandal and bamboozlement of the people and has led to this taxation that is only effective because people don't really have the IQs to understand what's happening to them. So that's more or less his point, right? So his whole thing is to simplify it and turn it into a silver on gold situation, right? So that's what he said we had previous. Now, we've talked a lot about Wizard of Oz, for example, being about that, about populism in the 1890s and the silver slippers. They were not ruby red, they were silver slippers, and it wasn't a yellow brick road, it was a gold brick road. So it was silver on gold. It was the preferred economic system for those people going forward just before fiat currency came in and sort of wiped them both off the field, right? So, so it's important to consider these two, let's say, or it's important to consider this historical situation because the truth is Milei understands it, right? And not only does he understand it, we have an example of it already in place, and that is El Salvador. El Salvador is already practicing the bimetallism that is possible throughout the world and in America in this, what I will call a middle period in the separation of state and money, where Bitcoin will live next to the US dollar in a way that we have consistently described the US dollar here on the Breakup as political money, as food stamps, as consumption money, as specifically what it is supposed to be, fiat money, declarations by the government, purely policy-based money. I think that will exist. I think you will have purely policy-based money. You're going to have to give all of your information. You'll get the money, though. We don't really have a deficit of things to consume and food. We're very good at creating all of that stuff. We don't know how to properly distribute it around the world, and we'll see if it works better to have this sort of policy money that is specifically directed in a type of UBI way to people to make sure they don't die and they can keep going forward, even if they don't really have the wherewithal to unshackle themselves from the mirage placed around them about what life's all about from the fiat information laundering complex, the architecture of deceit. If they want to stay within the comforts of the architecture of deceit, right? Nice government, they're nice to you, right? They're looking out for you, they're going to save you. Some people are not going to be able to get out of that, right? And so what El Salvador already has is this form of bimetallism. That's what it is, right? They have a US dollar. They don't have their own fiat shitcoin. They have US dollars connected to Bitcoin. And if Milei doesn't copy El Salvador in the very short term, because he understands there's no excuse in his case, right? He gets it. It's not like we're dealing with someone who needs to be briefed on Bitcoin, right? We're not dealing with that. We're dealing with someone who's completely aware. So I'm obviously none of this is to put cold water on Milei. What I'm just saying is he's going to be tested right away, right? So he goes to the dollar. It's not going to be that simple, right? If he goes straight to the dollar and doesn't even bring up Bitcoin and doesn't even talk about it, well, we know what we have on our hands, right? We have an IMF plant and we're going to have to deal with it, right? I don't think that's the case, though. My instinct is right now, even using what his process here, what he walked through, all helpful information, right? But the good news is the test is coming soon. The good news is we'll be able to see soon. Now, the media is not going to tell us, right? We're going to have to figure it out for ourselves, and we will, right? We've been very good at this, and that's really the big change that's coming, and is already here, because this, Milei, big story this weekend, but to me, the biggest story remains what we saw on Saturday with Media Matters and Elon Musk suing them, I guess, this morning. The minute the courts open up, we're going to have a thermonuclear legal case against Media Matters. And I'm going to tell you why that's one of the most important things we've ever seen. What is Media Matters exactly, right? Media Matters is the principal cutout for all of these information laundering systems. It's one of the most important buttresses and pillars of the architecture of deceit. Without this reference of Media Matters, you can't actually wipe away and clean all of the bad news and turn it into brainwashing material. That's their job, right? And you can see this case already being brought up, right, about Media Matters. Look at what they did to so there's been a bunch of investigation now into what they even did to get Elon and Twitter into trouble in the first place. And it was all a scam, right? So if you listen to Media Matters, where they say X is placing ads for Amazon, NBA Mexico, NBC Universal, and others next to content with white nationalist hashtags. Well, we found out that even to do this, even to get what they produced, they had to sort of go around and churn this. They had to like refresh their screens some unbelievable amount of times. Because of course the autists have come in, and the weaponized autists have been like, no, none of this was possible. And in the end, I guess the truth is the Media Matters piece is even like X is better than anyone else at keeping anti-Semitic and all this sort of hate speech off the platform. So here's what Kaneko the Great writes about his resume of the autists looking into the Media Matters case. So he says, an ex-executive discloses that the content highlighted in Media Matters article constituted a mere 50 out of 5.5 billion, right? I'm going to read that again. 50 out of 5.5 billion ad impressions served throughout the day. In reality, virtually no authentic users encountered these ads juxtaposed with the mentioned content, except for Media Matters employees who intentionally exploited the system to locate such material. How did Media Matters achieve this? They created 3 new accounts, each following only a small number of accounts posting objectionable material. By relentlessly refreshing their timeline 13 times more frequently than an average user, they were able to capture screenshots of major corporate advertisements alongside the targeted content. The revelation exposes Media Matters' calculated strategy. Generating these screenshots has leverage to compel major advertisers to withdraw their ads from X. Deceptive, manipulative, and evil. And here's, you get, one of our favorite cutouts. What's his name again? Ben, the fellow who works for NBC. This guy's great. Ben Collins. Yeah, I can't follow anymore. So sometimes when the brainwashers speak, it enrages me. And so I have to ignore them. So Ben Collins, he used to be a pretty steady stream of content for us in Moscow time and all that. In the end, my urge to punch him in the face got too great that I had to mute him, right? And just go to other sources because he's so irritating to me, right? He's like at the level of Justin Trudeau irritation where I can't consume his content. Oh, by the way, before I get into him, Gavin Newsom sucks. We all know that, right? We don't want Gavin Newsom to be the president. We hate Gavin Newsom. But I got to say, he's talented. because did you see him when Trudeau went to suck his ass last week in California? So Trudeau goes down there to do a meeting, and Trudeau's like hosting it in California. He's trying to host him in California, right? So Trudeau and Newsom sit down last week in California just after Xi leaves. So Newsom's on kind of a high, right? And now he's got to deal with this stupid Canadian guy. So this stupid Canadian guy comes and makes a joke about his socks. So if you guys aren't aware of this, Justin Trudeau's been using this ridiculous thing where his socks are so zany and cool. He's been doing that since before he was elected. Look at my socks, right? And what does Gavin Newsom say to him when they're talking, right? And he tries to make a sock joke in the introduction to their panel or whatever. Newsom goes, "You're still doing the sock thing, you know?" You're still doing this like a Californian who understands entertainment and humor or whatever. Right, punching Justin Trudeau in the face was pretty good. You got to see it. Like, and it makes me think that Newsom really does have game. Seeing him do that to Trudeau was like shit. You know, he could be a real fight for Trump. Now, you know, he's stupid in other ways, but it was a good move, right? Anyway, it might just be because I hate Trudeau, right? Maybe I don't want to be blinded by that, but it was a strong move by Newsom. Anyway, back to the other person that I can't stand, Ben Collins. So Ben Collins, right, is saying the following about Media Matters, right? So Stephen Miller, used to work for Trump, says fraud is both. So here they're talking about Media Matters, right? And this is the case that Elon is going to file this morning. Stephen Miller says fraud is both a civil and criminal violation. There are 24 conservative state attorney generals. Elon Musk, interesting, both civil and criminal, right? Attorney General Andrew Bailey with the Missouri versus Biden case. That's the Missouri attorney general saying, my team is looking into this matter. So Ben Collins comes out and says, so they're going to lock up a bunch of Media Matters researchers for noticing that racists love his website. Sure, go for it, Ben says, right? Mike Ben says, you can't make this up. They're really trying the researchers trick for Media Matters, the same framing used to launder DHS censorship, Stanford Internet Observatory mass flagging and crisis PR ops, and countless other economic coercion jobs, custom built to kill free speech. So what else have we learned about Media Matters in the past few days, right? Well, hold on. It's not just that. I got one more, but before we get into what we learned about Media Matters. So Media Matters, it looks like it's happening, right? It looks like this legal case is going to go forward. And it's not just going to be Musk, right? Chris Pavelski, the CEO and founder of Rumble. Please tell me if I'm on Rumble correctly this morning. It didn't broadcast me on Saturday again. Stupid Rumble. As much as I love Chris Pavelski, you got to work on the Rumble thing. We need the stream key that's permanent, so it's not a pain in my ass every day to stream. Anyway, we like Chris Pavelski. We love Rumble. We're so glad they're not like YouTube, where I am definitely being shadow banned. So Pavelski says, in response to Musk going against Media Matters, he says, when I said the cavalry is coming, I was not joking. In the coming days, we are going thermonuclear as well. Everyone is about to witness the greatest pushback against the censorship regime. The people's support for all organizations in this mission is critical. I will continue to only broadcast every day on Rumble, and I would go only Rumble if I needed to, right? Because we might need to. We'll see. So other people coming. But here's what we've learned about Media Matters since, okay? First of all, who's funding Media Matters? Did you guys know this? Did you guys know who's funding Media Matters? It's a Soros thing, right? It's a Soros thing. So are we actually witnessing Elon Musk versus George Soros? I think so. Now, George Soros is old and stupid and his brain is rotten. So that's why his son, Alex Soros, has taken over. Has Alex Soros ever been asked to defend open borders, the prosecutors? Have we ever heard anyone on planet Earth defend? Can you defend what they do? What Media Matters is asking for. So now Soros has taken over, the young kid Soros, right? Who's begged me to speak at Consensus a couple years ago. No, not putting that name on my agenda. So Alex Soros, sucky little crypto investor VC guy, right? Inherited all his money, who doesn't have the chops to go in public speaking and go through what's about to happen. He's going to be called by Elon Musk. He's going to be called by everyone just to go on the fake news and say what he has to say. Now, they can't even allow him to do that because there's no defending most of this stuff. They can try. They're going to probably try and baby him, but I think they're just going to try and hide him. If he does get drawn out into the fight, he's going to get torn apart. he can't survive this, right? Imagine trying to survive an onslaught of Elon Musk, all of Rumble now, right? There's probably going to be a new Alex Jones game. I did the playthrough this weekend. Hilarious. You guys don't even understand. The entire narrative is inside the game. It's much more compelling than reading an article and an expose and a research paper and a deep dive and a YouTube video. The game is like however many levels, right? You go to Epstein Island, you go to the vaccine makers. There's one in Canada where they freeze your bank account and you have to shoot the truckers. There's evil truckers, right? And of course, it's all hosted by Castro's illegitimate son. Let me read the actual like level descriptions, right? Trucker showdown in Canada. Castro Jr. is on the loose, trying to force experimental shots while looking like a fruitcake in the process. The Canadian truckers are protesting the oppressive Canadian government. All of their funds have been frozen by the NWO banks until the citizens relent. Castro Jr. must be overthrown. Castro Jr. Guys, they're not going to be able to compete with this kind of persuasion and this kind of energy. It's not going to be contained, right? You've got all this stuff going on. You've got the case with Media Matters now. And again, like, what's their answer? Their answer to the Media Matters thing was the EU is not going to. So we already know who's boycotting. It's NBC, right? NPC News. So NPC News is out. Oh, we're going to get so many Bitcoiners that are getting all their news from NPC News that are now the whole thing's going to fall apart. So that's not going to work, right? So the EU, remember Thierry Breton, the guy we were always talking about, right? He's the guy who's always trying to like be chirpy about living in dystopia, right? He's the chirpy dystopia guy. He's like the male version of Professor Umbridge or whatever her name was in Harry Potter, right? Yeah, it's a smiley pink cat lady. So Thierry, right, who is on the space drop list now. So he's one of the first to jump in and say we're not advertising. Okay, but what does the EU advertise, right? Is it their migrant policies? Is that come move to the European Union? We have the best, right? Is it their energy policies? Which is it? What advertising does the EU do that is indispensable? So the great news is all these people, you say what you want about Andrew Tate. I'm not a fan, right? I've mentioned many times I'm not a fan of Andrew Tate at all, right? But I have never denied his skill, his talent, his persuasion. He's the full package. There's nothing like him, right? Nothing. I'll even say it. He's close to Trump level. Now, Trump is in a category of his own, but Andrew Tate is a very, very persuasive and powerful person, right? No denying it. So he comes out and says he's going to advertise X on X, and he'll spend $1 million a month doing it, right? So all kinds of people, even have Tim Pool. He's going to do $250,000 ad buys every month. And I don't think Tim Pool just has $250K lying around. Like, I've negotiated with Tim Pool about events and speaking before, and I couldn't afford it because he needs the money and asked me for money and said, you got to do this and you got to do that. And I said, well, next time, right? And when Bitcoin goes up, maybe we'll talk. But I don't think he has 250K around just to blow on X, right? So all kinds of people joining this fight, all kinds of people showing up. I think this Media Matters thing is going to be a big deal, right? And even go back to this research thing, right? The idea of, like I said before, Ben Collins saying the Media Matters researchers are going to be locked up, right? Ben says the following, right? The moment you set up an operation, you stop being a researcher. You're an op. The moment you publish a hit piece, you stop being a researcher. You're an activist or a journal. The moment you flag posts to take down, you're not a researcher, you're a censor, right? And we have a perfect example of this, which is, and this is an interview with SBF from a year ago with a guy I used to work with, who I know. So he was he's a journalist with Real whatever, the thing with, what's his name? He's all into Ripple or not Ripple or something like that. What's his name again? Raoul Pal, right? So the Raoul Pal guy. Real Media, anyway, he used to work at CoinDesk, then he went and worked there. So I knew him. So he was interviewing SBF last year, right? And asked SBF, like, where'd you come up with Alameda Research, right? And so he goes, his actual answer, right? SBF's actual answer about the word research. He goes, every time you hear, so this is Ben saying, every time you hear disinformation research or a group saying it's a disinformation research firm, then you are using the Sam Bankman-Fried trick on why he called his trading desk Alameda Research. Real Vision. Yes, thank you, Edgar. Real Vision. Yes, Real Vision. The cat was McGonagall. Yeah, she had cats on the wall. Yeah. She wasn't that. Yeah. So, that's why he called Alameda Research Alameda Research. I remember. I actually asked him what he researched when I called, because I called him in 2018 when it was just Alameda Research. I called him to speak at my event in Singapore, and I was like, "What do you guys research? What do you research? Trading coins?" I'm like, okay. I'm a researcher too, I guess. I was actually the director of research at the time at CoinDesk. That was my title. So anyway, the point is the Media Matters thing is big because the architecture of deceit, which Media Matters is a major part of, right, is not holding up. And because it's not holding up, you're not really going to be able to contain and direct messaging the way you did in 2016 and 2020 in the last elections. We already seen it come out, right? Look at what's happening. Look what the Israel thing is actually doing perpetually throughout American society. Ukraine did it, Israel's doing it more, right? It's completely rejigging the divide and the line and the perceptions and all this stuff. And remember, most of the brainwashing used by the information laundering complex requires a high ground maneuver where people believe they are the self-righteous, morally better people. They're not the racists. They're not the fascists. They're not any of these things. They're the peacemakers, right? So if you don't have this fake moral high ground thing, and you lie to people to convince them they're on the side of good, the good side of history, right? It starts to fall apart because they'll realize the facts will enter their universe and they can't hold the lie in their head anymore. And we're seeing it, right? Vivek Ramaswamy, right? I don't know if you guys saw on Friday night on the Bill Maher show. Remember what I said about Bill Maher? I said he's one of those guys who's going to flip. He's going to flip. He's going to flip, right? So they get Donna Brazile. So Donna Brazile was the former head of the Democrat Party. She's the one who gave, when she was at CNN, the questions to Hillary before the debate, right? So she's out there talking about Vivek pronouncing his name wrong, which I do all the time. So I'm no fault on her for that. Okay, I call Vivek regularly by accident. I hope he doesn't hate me, and I don't think he did. I've met with him. I've talked with him. Right? I don't think he gets that mad if you get the name wrong, but he will ask you to get it right. And I wish I got it right every time. Right? I don't. But she was being told deliberately his name is not Vivek, it's Vivek. And then what does she say? She says he needs to go home several times. She says that Vivek Ramaswamy needs to go home. She said that. She said he needs to go home. All right. So fine, she's entitled to say that, right? But remember, Vivek is born in America. It didn't really work. So Bill Maher came out and said, that's really terrible and racist, right? You got to at least say his name right. And then he's born in America. So this high ground thing is just not working out anymore, right? You can't, if you can criticize this stuff, if there is something like X where you have a platform now that isn't going to be inundated with manipulation and censorship and all these things, then you're going to see that Donna Brazile is a flaming racist who came out and told this Indian fella to go home because she didn't like what he was saying, right? It's kind of good. So Vivek takes it very great. Vivek was wonderful about it all. He just said, I wonder what they'd do if a white Republican intentionally mispronounced Donna's name and told her to return home. We know what they do, right? We know what they do. But it gets worse, right? It gets worse. And this is where the loser idea comes into huge significance, right? Loser. So I've said for a long time that for the Bitcoin standard to come to America, we had to lose a war. Now, what does losing a war look like? I don't want to lose a war like the Japanese lost a war or the Germans lost a war, right? But that's not the only way to lose a war. I've been saying for a long time that America needs to lose a war. I don't want to see any Americans dying in us losing a war. I don't want to see that, right? But there's more than one way to lose a war. And the Russia-Ukraine thing, what we found out this weekend, which we've known for a while here on The Breakup, but now we're starting to get popular confirmation in a way that I don't think can be suppressed any longer. And it looks like this. It turns out, and we found out this from Kanekoa, the Kanekoa Substack, right? Who says, and this is from, this is from both David Sachs and Kanekoa, right? So here's what he says. Just 1 month after the start of the Russian military intervention in Ukraine, Ukrainian and Russian negotiators had come very close to an agreement for a ceasefire and to an outline for a comprehensive peace solution to the conflict. So we've said that many times, right? But now we're getting more details. In contrast to today, President Zelensky and his government has made great efforts to negotiate peace with Russia and bring the war to a quick end. 3, contrary to Western interpretations, Ukraine and Russia agreed at the time that the planned NATO expansion was the reason for the war, and therefore focused their peace negotiations on Ukraine's ability and its renunciation of NATO membership. In return, Ukraine would have retained its territorial integrity except for Crimea. Number 4, there is little doubt that this peace negotiation failed due to resistance from NATO and in particular from the US and the UK. So it looks like the US stopped peace, right? The reasons is that such a peace agreement would have been tantamount to a defeat for NATO, an end to NATO's eastward expansion, and thus an end to the dream of a unipolar world dominated by the USA. The failure of peace negotiations in March 2022 led to a dangerous intensification of the war that has cost the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, especially young people. Do you know that the average age now for the Ukrainian military is 42 years old because all the young people are dead? They're dead. So there's 40-year-old soldiers now. Now, the actual, result of this, according to Kanekoa Substack, Kanekoa the Great, President Biden is the reason for this. He is the reason there is no peace deal. He is the reason Ukraine is destroyed and hundreds of thousands of young men and women in Ukraine are now dead. President Joe Biden played a leading role in starting the wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Yemen, Syria, which killed millions of people and wasted trillions of dollars while not serving the national security interests of the American people. Now, put the Media Matters thing into context, right? And remember, if Soros Alex gets to not testify on this stuff and not even answer questions on this stuff, we're going to understand, because I don't think he can justify any of this. I don't think anyone can justify all of Biden's mistakes and failures, right? There's only one way to explain his failures and mistakes. It's not from his lack of brain power either. It's not because he's stupid. It's not because he believes his policies are good. It's because of blackmail. Biden isn't this stupid. There's no way. He's getting blackmailed, right? I mean, can we not see within the architecture of deceit where blackmail fits in? It's all over. Most of these politicians who are doing the stupidest shit that you can't even explain, there's only one explanation for it. It's blackmail. It looks like the blackmail thing is exactly what people thought it was, as big as they thought it was, and that the only way to hide it is with this whole architecture running exactly as intended. The problem is this architecture is really complicated. And if you have something like X, if you have the richest man in the world who's also breaking the firmament and shooting rockets into space, you got real enemies on your hands, and the architecture can't survive it, right? If you've got the right-wing Avengers of Trump and now put Milei into there, right, and Elon Musk, what are you going to do? And now Alex Jones and his video games, you can't compete with this kind of storytelling, persuasion, capacity. And you certainly can't do it with Ben Collins and Media Matters and Alex Soros, who we don't even know if he can string a sentence together and have a conversation. What would Alex Soros do even with media that protected him? They're not smart enough to make him look good out of this. They can't actually ask him, well, what about all these prosecutors? Like, do you think it's a good idea to let people out of jail? Right? Is that a great idea? Is it a great idea to have open borders in America? Of course not. Of course not, right? Everybody knows it's not a good idea. So I think you're finally going to have these conversations. And I do believe that Elon Musk has picked a fight straight up with Soros on this Media Matters thing. And there's no way they can win. There's just no way, right? So we'll see. I mean, it's not over yet, right? There's a lot that can happen. And but here's what Balaji says, right? So Balaji says 3 freedoms. Over the past year, the network, and by the network, he means the network state. So the state that's not a nation, that is based on what he says is the foundation of the network state, is Bitcoin maximalism, according to Balaji, right? That Bitcoiners understanding they're a nation apart is foundational to his network state philosophy, right? So he says the following: over the last year, the network state made major inroads in taking back social, crypto, and AI from the state. He says, first, Elon acquired Twitter, fired the wokes, and removed DC's central point of control over social media. True. Then he says, then citizen journalists unmasked FTX, destroying DC's desired point of control over crypto. True. I had a first row seat to citizen journalists. Ian Allison, CoinDesk, all the awards. That I was there for years. The document that separated journalistic integrity at CoinDesk from the owners of CoinDesk, who are probably not to be trusted. I don't know that for a fact, but in general, for a media company, you don't want to have to listen to your owners, right? So they asked me years ago to write the policy by which the journalists would have a protective envelope from the ownership of the company. Well, the reason why CoinDesk has won all these awards is because they broke the SBF story and destroyed their parent company. They destroyed it, right? I was having open conversations at CoinDesk in September 2022 about what the aftermath of SBF being destroyed was, right? We knew it. Everybody knew it, right? And luckily, we were not able to, we were able to do the story. And indeed, Robert, yes. Ever since, oops, no, that's not what I want. So Felipe says exactly. So ever since we've seen the Epstein story come out, we understand there is this blackmail architecture there. Now, there's people who say, right, there's people who say that he was, there's people that say that he was more a money launderer first and the blackmail stuff came later. Could be, right? But it doesn't matter in the sense that we can actually talk about this stuff now. We can put the pieces in place. We can see the architecture of deceit. We can see the machine working, right? And here's just a perfect example of something we couldn't have done before, right? So this guy, this is just a little thing that happened on X, right? Paul Farhi, right? Washington Post writer, right? I write about the news media for the Washington Post, right? So you know exactly who he is, right? He wrote the following tweet. Someone invented the phrase citizen journalism a few years ago to describe amateurs doing the work of pros, right? And that's what he says. Yes, it occasionally works, but probably no more often than citizen cop, citizen attorney, or citizen soldier. So he's saying here that citizen journalism is as dumb as citizen cops, right? Okay. Mark Hemingway says the following. Yes, it takes a lot of insular credentialism to get the 2016 election, Russia collusion, the COVID lab leak, Hunter Biden's laptop so wrong, while simultaneously demanding censorship of those that saw the truth all along, right? So this capacity is done. This Paul Farhi guy has the persuasion ability of a fart from an ant. There's nothing coming out of that. There's nothing coming out of Paul Farhi and all of the Washington Post anymore. How many people could they spin onto their side at this point? Zero. They have no more capacity. They can keep the morons in their cage a little bit longer, right? But that's about it. Everyone they lose forever. They don't come back, right? You have to do another op to get them back. It takes something like Palestine and all of that craziness to get some people to switch sides, right? But now that things are so discombobulated and all of this stuff is happening, it's going to be nearly impossible, right? Nearly impossible for them to put it back in. And Media Matters being this, starting as a Soros-funded entity, and that it's an activist arm of this censorship wing, right? Means that they're now finally the target. I think this Media Matters case is going to prevent any craziness in the next election around brainwashing, gaslighting, all of this stuff. I think the thing is coming down. I think it's coming down. And we're here for it, guys. It's great. Right? We're here for it. So the point is, there is some form of blackmail. Oh, I missed two of the most important things. So the Soros thing is amazing, right? About Media Matters, but I got one more story and you're not even going to believe it. I don't know if this is true though. I don't know if this is true. Let me see if this is true. You guys can help me confirm this because I just don't know. It seems crazy. But so much is actually crazy. So who knows? I should have put it on my notes. Oh yeah, this is a good one too. This is war clandestine. Every major media narrative was a lie. Russiagate, fabricated by the Clinton campaign. COVID, made in a lab, and the vaccines were neither safe nor effective. Ukraine, catastrophic failure. January 6th, false flag event staged by elements within our own government. Hunter's laptop, real, not Russian disinformation. Election fraud, real, significant, admitted irregularities in swing states such as Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. Social media censorship, real. FBI, DHS were meeting and communicating with private tech companies and instructing them to censor accurate information on their platforms. If the entire MSM is parroting the same thing at the same time, historically speaking, it's virtually guaranteed to be a lie. But here's the most important thing. Now, I do not know if this is true. Okay, so we are moving into, I could be getting rolled by fake news, which happens all the time, by the way. There's no way we can't be affected. So it comes from Awakened Outlaw and Sovereign Bra is how I saw it. You know, Sovereign Bra is the Whatever podcast, right? So it turns out, according to them, right, that did you know that the founder, David Brock, and CEO of Media Matters, right, was one half of the DC power couple with his partner, James Alefantis, who was the co-owner of Comet Ping Pong Pizzeria. So, yep, that's the restaurant at the center of Pizzagate. So, Pizzagate might come out of this Media Matters story. Can they stop Pizzagate again? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. So, are we about to find out that there was an actual Pizzagate situation in America? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But I know there is a blackmail ring. And what does the blackmail ring look like? I don't know. It might look like a pizza thing because it fits, right? So we're going to find out. We all know New Haven is the pizza capital. Yeah. Well, it looks that bad, guys. It looks exactly as we've feared for a while now. So Pizza the Hut. Yeah. Pizza the Hut. So who knows? But I think Cernovich is going to be super relevant in 2024 because we know it's super. He did, right? Blackmail was the name of the game. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what it looks like, but headed that way, it looks like. Headed that way. Let me see if I got anything else. Yeah, that's about all I got. It looks like there are peace talks in the Middle East. That would be great. That would be great. But yeah, crazy days, guys. Crazy days. We're having a good time. Let me see what the people say in the comments. Yeah. Your daily anti-tyranny, fascist, totalitarian action greater than Bitcoin stack sets. Yeah, but they're the same. I think that might be a patsy. Bring back prison farms for what? Yeah, absolutely, Robert. I think, honestly, try and turn him. See what he can do for us. Make SBF grow 1 billion organic cucumbers. Yeah, so we're very enthusiastic. Don't take what I said as being not enthusiastic about Milei. I am. I just wanted to show Benz's work because he admitted he had no experience and just wanted to see what he found, right? The IMF stuff is worth seeing, but like I said, we'll know very quickly with Milei what side we're on here. I think we're in good territory. My instinct says we're good. We're fine, right? But we'll find out. It looks like the Bitcoin El Salvadorians are headed right away. So we're acting like nation states making coalitions immediately. So that's what you want to see. We'll know. I think Max will let us know what he thinks. You're an American. Oh, war is imposition of will. Yeah, we did lose every war since Korea. But what I mean is, we never had to admit to losing the war, right? We never had to admit it. This one we're gonna have to admit we were the non-peacemakers. So OpenAI poop storm. Again, my theory from the other day is looking more and more accurate, right? That he got involved in military contracting with the tech privately without his company being aware. So I have a feeling that's what it was. I have a feeling they were making military deals and it was sort of not in the mandate, right? I did have a wonderful weekend with the family, CB. It was nice to see them. I had missed them. They were gone. Musk breaking up the industrial blackmail complex. Hope he have some hardware for space. He'll definitely. He will definitely. I'm not worried about that. Well, that's what I mean, John. It's 100% if he's sincere. It's 100%. If he's sincere, it's 100%. And by the way, I did see this comment here. Any good-looking Argentinian ladies looking for a whole coiner? And I did see here, Robert, also, where is a good place to visit in Argentina? Well, I have a friend who's headed there now to build a geodesic dome in Patagonia mountains. So that's one probably cool place. But here's a tip about the women. I've mentioned it before, but this is good to know. I've seen Bitcoiners use this before. So if you have a child in Argentina, it can confer, so it's automatic Argentinian, but it will confer citizenship upwards to you. So it's a way to get another passport for free just by going down there and using their birthing. So if you have a kid in Argentina, you can be an Argentinian that easily. So good to know. Good to know. I don't plan on doing it, but Patagonia is definitely on the bucket list. Yeah. Maiku. Another banger. Thanks for the show and the clarity you provide. Well, I got to thank all the sources I use on X, and we got to thank all those people. We got the Savior now and the Land of Silver. Yeah, it's true, huh? We got the Savior now and the Land of Silver. Yeah. Argentine, by the way, if you guys don't know, in I'm not sure all Latin languages, but as someone who speaks French, argent means money, and argent also means silver, and Argentine meant land of silver. So there you go. And again, the reason why I say this about Milei is because he has no excuse, right? He has no excuse. He knows what bimetallism is, and he knows what I'm not going to read your comment, Robert, but it's good. He knows what bimetallism is. He knows and will have in his own native language in Spanish from Bukele an explanation of what's going on here. So no excuses. So Milei has a year to do this. Otherwise, we write him off, right? We write him off. He's got a year. If he pretends and plays dumb, it's over with this guy. But I don't think so. My belief is we got a winner. We're going to be great, right? So, but at least we'll know. That's the important thing. He can't drag us along. We'll know. I was going to talk a bit about the JFK stuff today too. Looks like more and more people coming to this conclusion about what happened. Looks like you're now able to just straight up say CIA killed him, and everyone gets it. Like that's totally 100% saturated now. So we'll probably talk about that more. He said it will take 9 months. So what I mean is not a year to fully go to Bitcoin and all that. What I mean is he's got to express clear. He can't be Alex Soros about the immigration and open borders and the district's attorney and all that stuff. He's got to be able to like explain his policy choices. Jeffy. I don't even want to leave it on the screen for too long. Indeed, it will take 9 months. Yes, a lot of 9 month thing going around here. Yeah, you guys are funny. You guys are very funny. So I think indeed it's going to take. What I mean is, if he just pretends and doesn't say it and never goes in, and then be suspicious, right? He's got a year to let us know what his plans with Bitcoin are clearly, and he's got to say it without equivocating, right? He's got to have like, we're not doing it or we're doing it in a year. Now, it doesn't mean we're running Shiva wallets down there like in El Salvador, right? Doesn't mean that. But it means that we know what his intentions are. Because if he's playing around with Bitcoin, I think we can believe he's sincere, right? If it's just this big, because here's the thing that Mike Ben said. He is committed to paying the debt of Argentina, which I'm not saying he shouldn't pay the debt of Argentina at all, right? But he's made a priority that the IMF, IMF for sure. But here's what I mean. So he said he's going to pay the debt, right, to the IMF. He's not gonna relinquish the debt to the IMF, which is obviously in dollars. So let him pay the debt, right? I'm not asking him to get by on the debt, but if his plan, the only real way to pay the debt is to do what he's saying. It's bimetallism. It's save in Bitcoin and then pay your money back in dollars, right? The thing we all know, right? Like, who doesn't know how to collateralize Bitcoin, get a dollar loan, and pay your dollar bills? Like, everybody knows that. That's the future. So if he ignores his number one principal way to pay the debt and does it with like cuts and all that stuff, then it's stupid, right? Then he's a scammer. If his plan to pay the debt is just dollarization and nothing else besides cuts, like the ANCAP cuts. I'm all for the ANCAP cuts. Don't get me wrong. I love the ANCAP cuts. Cut it all. This ministry, get rid of it. He's right about all of that, right? But if he just does the cuts and dollarizes and pays the debt, and the whole point is like a 5-year policy to pay the debt in dollars by cutting, we're done. Like, this guy's got to go, right? Because, well, I mean, that's what I think. There's only one way out for him. It's to acknowledge Bitcoin. And if he does so, which I think he will, because he has no excuse not to, then we'll know which side he's on, and we'll have to know that in a year. We just will have to, right? I could be wrong. Things could happen, and maybe everything I'm saying now absolutely doesn't hold water within a year, and he's still great, and they haven't embraced Bitcoin, and everything's fine, right? We should consult the I Ching. Yeah, I will do that tomorrow. I will consult the I. Well, let's just do it right now. Let's see what the I Ching says, right? Let me formulate a good question for it, right? Let me see. Okay. I'm going to get my I Ching online of changes. Okay. Now, enter my question. I'm going to say, will the new Argentine president embrace Bitcoin to evolve his nation. It's not saving, to evolve his nation. All right. So my question is, will Robert have an... I'm not going to ask that. Let's see what it says, okay? My question to the I Ching, will the new Argentine president embrace Bitcoin to evolve his nation? This is my question. Let's see what I get. Throw the coin 6 times. Hold on. Oh, no. What's going on here? I got to do a different one, guys. This one is telling me it's a scam. I got to sign up. Okay, different I Ching. This one will work. Next. Let me see what I got. All right, what do I got? Tossing the coins. Let me see. Ooh, I got... Okay, primary judgment. Influence. This is what I get. Influence, okay? We are all interconnected, and we all affect each other's lives. This hexagram symbolizes the power each of us has to support one another, change and charm one another. This is a time to cooperate and connect. The deeper and broader meaning of relationships comes into play as one explores the ways that friends and lovers change each other. This will be a time when you easily bring someone new into your life. You can understand your lover, partner, coworker by studying them and their environments. Win their approval with your loyalty and steadfast vision. The good news is my book is coming out this week, everyone. The Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management. And that's exactly what this is about. It's literally about how easy it is once you understand Bitcoin to persuade people. And I have the entire handbook for you. You can do exactly what I've been doing for 10 years. And it shall work for you too. Yeah, I did have a coin. Dang it. Look what I got. I had this one. I should have done this one. My kids got this in a random thing the other day. They were so proud. Hex number is the 31. Hex number 31. Hex number 31, Bitcoin graffiti. Yeah. So it's influence. That's everything. It's all about it. We're all interconnected. We're people around the world coming together. It's exactly what Balaji was talking about. It's not that citizen journalists are stupid. Citizen cops. You get everything wrong, you're done. So there it is, guys. That's what I got for today. We're winning. Big time win. Really need the book. Surrounded. It's ready. You're gonna love it. Huddle Tea. The reviews are incredible. People love it. It sticks out. There's nothing ever been written like it, right? I come right out and I say, this is not a list of arguments. This is a list of literally magic counterspells to fight against the black magic of fiat that has hypnotized and laid spellbound masses. And we have the key. You can actually use Bitcoin as an entire organizing principle around counterspells and everything. So it's it's funny. It's a little out there, but I think it's going to hit. I really do. We're in an era of mysticism now, and I will not arm you with retarded arguments. Oh, did you read? There's none of that. There's none of that. Yeah. All right. Peace. See you guys. Thanks for coming.